Hey everyone, so I am in a coat because it's pretty chilly. It's heading into the winter season and it's already started snowing. I want to talk today about drive and motivation. Now, I see a lot of people who seem to be doing things along the right pathway in achieving what they want, which is very admirable. They're learning through osmosis. They have these mentors who are 10, 20 years ahead of them in where they want to be. They're doing all this stuff, taking initiative, um, traveling with these people, learning with them, learning to practice, becoming an entrepreneur, or whatever they're doing. And it's very admirable because, again, I see people who are not along that path too, who are just walking around life very lazily, lackadaisically, just not doing anything every day while these people are hustling. And it's all very admirable. But even with some of these people, I noticed a lot of passivity. And there's this one in particular, and this seems to be a person who uh, is along this pathway, but I just noted how people like this, they just lack a certain amount of drive and motivation. You really have to want it. And immediately I just noted that that's not enough. Just sitting there and absorbing stuff from your mentor or absorbing information is great. But if you don't want it badly enough, if you don't have that motivation, you're not going to hustle hard enough. You're not going to put in the hours. You're not going to be um, uh, pouring yourself over the material. You're not going to spend 10 hours a day working your butt off with no breaks, with levels of gruesome, torturous, hard work to a sickening degree that most people have never even experienced or can understand. You kind of have to want it really hard. And that's what I noted when I observed some of these people. It's just like just doing this sort of stuff is not good enough. Now, um, where does this come from? Where does this motivation and drive come from? I feel like, in my opinion, it comes from possibly numerous different areas. It doesn't have to be just one possible place where it can come from. You can have people who just are so deeply interested in a topic that it's so fun for them that they don't want to do anything else. It's the most fun thing for them that exists on the planet. And that's a rarity that I feel like it actually exists, which is ridiculous, where something very boring to most people becomes super interesting to others, to the point where they love it more than what I would say a more common interest would be video games or playing outside, sports, um, whatever it is, watercolor painting. And that just by the nature of society or luck, or sometimes because they took it upon themselves to engineer a profession where they could get paid doing that. Other times it was a lot of luck that happened to fall into it. Example being Warren Buffett, who was born wired to love capital allocation, and that just happened to make him a lot of money. And he's admitted numerous times in interviews, and I fully believe him, that if he was paid seashells or if he was paid nothing even close to the amount he was performing the task he did with capital allocation, he would still do that. Like legitimately, he loves what he does very much. If he was born into a world where he was paid $10 an hour to do what he did, he probably would do it. I'm almost certain because I myself have experienced and poured over and researched the kind of stuff that he loves doing, and that's something that you really have to enjoy, like really really have to enjoy to spend 8 hours, 10 hours per day just reading that sort of stuff, doing nothing else but reading financial statements and analyzing companies and reading newspapers and all this stuff. Um, and so motivation can come from there. It can also, like, again, sometimes you have to want it really badly. You have to want it. It could come from proving someone wrong. And again, sometimes if the motivation comes from the wrong places, then it's not going to be strong enough and you're not going to get far. So, for instance, if you, let's say, hate doing something like um, certain subject like mathematics or science, or let's say a certain sport, and the motivation's coming from others, whether it's to please someone else or because uh, you want to do it for indirect reasons, you know, oftentimes you don't get that far. Having said that, though, what you don't like in your childhood can translate later into something you very much like. For me, you know, didn't really like, I didn't really understand why I had to go through a lot of the classes I did in science and math and physics. Although I did enjoy them to a certain extent, but not really that much. But now I'm very, very, very thankful for all those classes because they've opened my eyes. They've been very helpful to me and just being appreciative of the amazingness of this world. And I feel like all these models of physics, science, everything comes together, and it just helps you whatever profession you're doing when you have these other models of different subjects in your mind. Motivation can come from different sources. Sometimes it's just uh, proving others wrong, or showing people that you're worth something, or just that belief that you can do it, or just wanting something really, really badly because uh, that's something that you've always wanted to do, or that's a profession you've always wanted to do, and you know you have to fight for it because there's a lot of competition after that profession. So there's a lot of different things and a lot of different factors. There's cases where people who don't really like what they're doing, but they plow through it, and they end up becoming a doctor who's making hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, is slightly miserable for the rest of his life doing something he hates, um, but he's making decent money. But so I think you know it's a very interesting thing, and there's a book I want to read on a topic. It's called Drive: The Interesting Truth to What Motivates Us. I haven't read it yet, but I think it's very relevant for this topic. And again, I feel like the rabbit hole for this whole topic of professions goes deeper than you think. And what I mean by that is that, um, depending on the economy and time period and where you're born and what place you're born, politics and so forth, there is a certain level of compromising what you like doing with practicality and making money. Um, but I feel like definitely in certain economies nowadays, most people are not really they can take it further. And I think I've watched a lot of interviews from successful people, entrepreneurs, and a lot of stuff. And one thing stuck with me. Again, this was you can look it up yourself. It's Peter Sage. It was an interview of Peter Sage on the channel London Real, and he said some stuff that really stuck with me. He said he's met Chinese millionaires worth hundreds of millions of dollars who are miserable with their lives, who can't get a girl to sleep with them unless they paid them. And in addition to that, they were miserable with life. They hated life. They were worth a lot of money, but they were miserable with it. And also, he said, um, it, it, if I could tell my 20-year-old self one thing, it would just be that you're already there. You don't have to go through all this stuff to prove anything to anyone else. You are a miracle by existence, and um, you're already there, and you have to take advantage of this wonderful life you're given. And the worst thing you can do is, well, not the worst thing. He said, what a horrible waste of your time if you're going to choose to spend it, uh, spending 40 years doing something you hate just so that you can retire and spend the last 10 years of your life on vacation. And he says that's just a complete horrible thing to do. And from what I found, it's very remarkable how a lot of successful people have, in fact, they do what they love, and that's where I think it's more amazing. With that comes a lot of money, which is remarkable. But I feel like, uh, you know, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind doing something I like and love, and still being broke and happy. Um, and I think I would respect that a lot more. Unfortunately, there's a great majority of people who are very on the opposite end of things. Um, but definitely, I think I would respect someone who loved what they did make a lot of money doing it, but was happy doing that rather than someone who has done the opposite. But it's a very tough thing for, especially for certain cultures, to swallow that pill. Um, and again, prestige and money and success in that atmosphere is ingrained in a lot of cultures. Um, so yeah, you kind of just have to remove yourself from the judgment of others placed on you by, I guess, culture. Um, and so, as far as motivation goes, back to this, the whole point of that, I think to achieve that level of success in what you're doing in terms of profession, or achieving what you want to do in terms of whoever your role model is and so forth, I think just surrounding yourself and learning and gaining experience and information is sometimes not enough. You have to want it badly, and that one can come from a lot of different sources. Some are not strong enough motivation factors, and it won't drive you any farther. Just think of people who actually are motivated and succeed at weightlifting or going to the gym for years on end. Oftentimes, they've learned to love what they're doing, and that's another thing for I think making money as well. There's a billionaire, Wayne Huizenga, who started it was a garbage truck company, garbage disposal company. I feel like I'm pretty sure he didn't like what he was doing when he started. I mean, it's not that glamorous of a job, but I'm sure over time, based on his actions, he loved what he was doing. He could have stopped well before the $1 billion mark. But I'm sure he loved the whole process of or running the company, consolidating companies, acquiring mom and pop government garbage disposal companies in order to expedite the process and so forth. And he became a billionaire throwing out trash. That is ridiculous in itself. As always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.